Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 17 of Daily Habit. Today, we're going to work on concept number 9 using behavioral activation from Brad Stulberg's book, Master of Change, How to Excel When Everything is Changing, Including You. We've gone through the 10 concepts thus far, which are the 10 tools for developing rugged flexibility. Hopefully you've been following along in the prior videos. If you haven't, please make sure to subscribe. I appreciate it. And hopefully as I get better at this, the content gets better. And I actually put this particular book in a playlist, so you should be able to see that if this material or content is interesting for you, you can kind of follow it from the first concept to where we're at now, and then we'll be finishing up tomorrow the 10th concept, which is don't force meaning and growth. Let them come on their own time. So again, hopefully you're having a great Friday. Let's go ahead and get started. So sometimes when we are stuck and feeling exhausted emotionally, physically, socially, or spiritually, the best thing we can do is rest. But at a certain point, rest creates inertia. Our minds and our bodies are as recovered as they are going to be. Yet we still feel off. At this point, we can likely benefit from deploying a psychological concept called behavioral activation. First developed in the 1970s by the clinical psychologist Peter Lewison as a way to help people work through depression, apathy, and other entrenched negative states of mind. Behavioral activation is based on the idea that action can create motivation, especially when we are stuck or in a rut. To be clear, this is not about trying to think positive thoughts, a mantra that became a pillar of the self-esteem movement in the last century, with mega best-selling books such as the 1952's The Power of Positive Thinking, arguing, we know now falsely, that if you just think positive thoughts and suppress negative ones, you'll gain health, wealth, and happiness. If anything, research has shown that those strategies often backfire. The more you mentally try to change how you feel, the more stuck in your current mood you're likely to end up. You simply cannot think or will yourself to a new state of being. The challenge with behavioral activation is mustering enough energy to start acting on the things that matter to you. When you feel down, unmotivated, or apathetic, give yourself permission to feel those feelings, but not dwell on them or take them as destiny. Instead, shift the focus to getting started with what you have planned in front of you, taking your feelings, whatever they may be, along for the ride. Doing so gives you the best chance at improving your mood. It can be helpful to think of this initial oomph as activation energy. Sometimes we need more, and sometimes we need less. When we are in a rut, even the little things require more, and that's okay. It may take some extra work to overcome the initial stasis and friction, but the laws of physics apply to our minds too. The more we get going, the easier it becomes. I think this one makes a lot of sense. I have definitely been in moments where it's difficult to get going, and I agree with the premise of just putting that one, foot in front of the other. I'll just give you a super quick memory for me that came to me as I read through this. When I ran my first marathon, honestly, And frankly, I did not train the way one probably would be recommended to train. I did not run probably enough miles. I did not run enough longer distances. Honestly, it was less than a year's worth of training, maybe less than 6 months worth of training. I might have even been less than 3 months looking back on it. So I went to my first race in Burlington, Vermont. And Burlington, Vermont, for those that have maybe raced there before, it is not necessarily a beginner's first race place. It's got hills. It's got some terrain that makes it somewhat difficult. It's not completely flat, honestly. And to be fair, I didn't really train for inclines or hills either. So, a lot of times enthusiasm can carry you a long way, right? It's that kind of that energy that you get from starting something. You can go a lot longer than you realize. So for whatever reason, I didn't even know what my pace was. So for those that are runners, it's probably hilarious, right? So I didn't even know really what my minute per mile pace was going to be. I had no clue. So as I got to the race, first time, I'm looking around and they have like these time markers kind of where you should be. And they have what they call a pace, a guy that can run that pace. And so I saw one and I thought, well, 10 minutes a mile, that's fine. That seems reasonable. Because in my head, I thought I was going to be able to run my first marathon with very little training at like 9 minutes a mile. So I thought, well, that's being reasonable. So I'm stubborn, and I'm sure a lot of people are stubborn, but sometimes being stubborn is stupid. So I went out, eager beaver, with this 10-mile-minute group. For the first, and I'm not kidding, this is why it's crazy, at least for the first 10 miles, I was keeping up with these people, which was pretty amazing, right? So for the first 10 miles on a 26-mile journey, I kept up, which was like 10 minutes a mile. That's like crazy for me. Nowadays, looking back on it. So then, I kind of, as I got to mile 10, I started kind of backing off the pace and kind of watching them. They just kept going and I was fading away. But I was still going much faster than I would be. And then a friend had told me about this concept of what they call the wall. And he said, you're going to see it at mile 20. I'm like, what are you talking about? What's the wall? He's like, you're going to see. You're going to learn. And so I managed to kind of keep going at a fairly, looking back on it, a fairly fast pace all the way to this dreaded mile 20. Mile 20's when my body decided that it no longer could run. It no longer could walk. It could no longer do anything. So at this point, I'm 20 miles into my first marathon and very little training, in absolute agony, can barely walk, I can't run. I'm thinking, everything in my power, I'm saying I'm gonna have to quit. I don't think I can finish. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it. And there was no positive power of thinking that was going to get me there. It was, you went 20 miles, man. You have to finish. It's up, you're not going to just, what are you going to do? Like, you're in the middle of nowhere. No one's going to come get you. You got to finish, my friend. You're the dumb person who decided to do this to yourself. So let's get going. So I kept walking, running. I was stretching, cramping, stretching. It was the most ridiculous last 6 minutes of my life. But then, I got to that last mile or two and I said, well, now you have to run. So I just jogged, ran, and then tried to sprint hopelessly to the finish line. And honestly, because I had none of the right gear, we can go into that another day. I had none of the right things. I really couldn't honestly properly walk probably for at least the next 2 to 3 days because of all the various issues from that. I finished, and then, but it was primarily because of just saying, you just gotta move. You just have to put that foot in front of yourself. You have to move. Sometimes you have no other choice. You had two choices there: quit, lay down, hope someone comes and picks you up, suffer through it, get it done. Keep moving, step by step. I would not recommend it. There are better ways to train for a marathon. I can tell you a little bit more about it in a future episode. I hope you enjoyed this reading today about using behavioral activation. I hope that you're having, again, a great Friday, in this episode number 17, reading from Master of Change by Brad Stulberg. How to excel when everything is changing, including you. God bless. Have a great weekend. See you again tomorrow.